Having conversations about what you want when it comes to sex can be uncomfortable. Women are socialized to feel shame related to our sexuality and our sexual desires. And so there may be a part of you that feels unsafe when it comes to talking about sex with your partner or partners. We know that good communication is a key ingredient to having really great sex. So what can you do when you feel uncomfortable talking about your sexual desires? Welcome to Embodied Eroticism. I'm Robin. I am a pleasure expert and feminist sex coach. In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you a simple 5-step process that I use to get comfortable with being uncomfortable talking about sex. Let's dive into the 5-step journey that you can take to start to feel comfortable talking openly about sex. Step 1 is to get clear on your sexual values and your sexual desires. This kind of clarity allows you to speak about sex in a way that feels really aligned for you. Step 2 is to start to notice when you want to speak up but you don't. And why don't you speak up? Is it because you are afraid of being judged, or are you afraid that you won't be heard or that you won't know what to say? And then notice what kinds of desires you're wanting to speak up about, or what kind of boundaries you're feeling like you need to be setting. The next step is to have conversations about sex in safer spaces. So this might be talking to your best friend or your therapist, or even working with a sex coach. Having conversations about your desires, about your sexuality in safe spaces where you're not going to be judged is a really great way to start to build that muscle of confidence when it comes to talking openly about sex. But it's also a really great way to dissolve any kind of shame you feel related to sex. Shame really thrives in isolation. So when we keep things bottled up inside, we can start to feel more shame related to that thing. But when we start to speak it out loud, sometimes what happens is we are talking to others who really empathize with our shame or who have experienced similar things. And it's in those moments that shame can no longer thrive. Step 4 is to have a framework for having conversations about sex. So if you kind of know how the conversation is going to go ahead of time, you can walk into that conversation feeling a little more confident. So this is my framework for having difficult or uncomfortable conversations with anybody, but maybe more specifically with a sexual partner. Step 1 is to consider the context and the space, and when you're going to have the conversation, just make sure it's an appropriate time and place to talk about sex. The next thing is to start the conversation with something positive. So you can talk about your relationship, say something positive about your relationship. You can say something positive about your partner. The next thing is to express what you want to have happen and why you want it to happen. So this is where you talk about your desires and why you really feel this desire is important. And then you can give the person that you're talking to some really clear steps for how they can respond to your desire, and also what they can do to support you in order to help you get your needs met. And then the final thing in this conversation is to acknowledge that you're having a two-way conversation. And so you need to be receptive to the feedback that your partner might give you. Listen to what they're capable of doing in order to support you. and then leave some space in this conversation to start a dialogue. This is a conversation, and you want to open that door for it to be a two-way dialogue. The final step is to practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the more you're going to start to feel comfortable having those conversations about sex. And just remember that discomfort is okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable talking about something that you're socialized to keep quiet about. And go easy on yourself. The more you practice, the easier these conversations become. But we just need to build that resilience. So practicing having the conversations, practicing being comfortable with being uncomfortable, over time you'll start to feel like talking about sex is second nature. Certainly is the case for me. I have no problem talking about sex, and this wasn't always the case. It's something I've practiced doing for a long time because of my job, because of the work I do, and just because of my passion for having really great sex. If you have kids in your life, this is such an important skill to learn, because especially if they're your own kids, they're probably going to ask you questions about sex, and you want to be able to answer those questions comfortably and confidently without passing along that discomfort that you learned when you were a kid related to sex and sexuality. This is how we break the cycle for future generations. If you like this video, then do me a favor and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel as well. If you know anyone who you think might be interested in learning more about love and sex and pleasure, then send them my way. I am back every week with a brand new video, and if you want to stay connected between videos, you can find me on Instagram or on TikTok, and the link for those can be found in the caption. You can also find in the caption a link to join my upcoming 4-day challenge called the Full Bodied Yes Challenge. And in this challenge, I'll be sharing way more communication tools and things that you can do to feel comfortable expressing your desires so that you can have the best sex of your life. Thanks for watching.